pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Welcome again, everybody, to the Capital Improvements Planning Committee. It is January 9th, 2025. I'm used to saying 2025. We do have a quorum. We're looking for Melissa. We hope she will be able to make it. But we can go ahead with our business. Now, we're getting to the part in the cycle where we've had all the interviews with departments and got the lists. And this is the list before us today. I assume is all of the things we talked about.
I think I have more on there, yes.
You have more?
I don't, I think this is it.
Oh, okay.
Included them all.
I got one thing. The COA, the elevator, I thought she wanted it in the 26.
She didn't
She-
have anything for 26.
You talked about it.
Because she's got 60,000. She needs 25 more to fix the elevator. I thought it was, because I changed it to 26, so I'm not sure. I'll have to ask her.
Okay.
But you did discuss it, and
Yeah,
I can check my note on that.
yeah, because
too.
she's already got 60,000 towards it from an article from way back. But now another part of it is gone. Going. I don't want to get stuck on the elevator. Take the stairs. I know.
Yeah, we should clarify that. I'm just looking here quickly. Well, anyway, that won't hold us up anyway. I'm not saying it isn't real money, but it's not enough to change this. Speaking of money, Jim presented an exhibit to the Board of Selectmen the other night, Select Board, and it had some, the use of free cash is what it really was. What we're talking about for the purposes of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee is a number of about $1.5 million. I'll admit that I'm looking at this exhibit where there are two numbers, but they contain different things, and we will decide which one is the one to go with for free cash. Free cash, we have, depending on which one you look at, we have a total of $3.4 million. And we have money set aside at the moment, and this is, of course, not final. Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
We're just making introductory remarks, so you didn't miss any real action here. We've got the stabilization account, special ed for the schools of $174,000. Budget and warrant articles, somewhere around $523,000. And the difference in these, Jim, was this minimum carryover. That's, I'm not sure what that is all about, but I'm trying to remember which is the difference between these two exhibits. Is there something on?
So the one on the left there, that was the 5-year plan, the financial plan. Those were the recommended percentages. And this is the numbers that come out. On the right was just a different option. It wasn't anything specific. It puts more into capital stabilization.
All right.
Kind of shifts some of the other stuff. The first one is minimum 10% carryover. That's just unspent free cash that goes into free cash for the following year to start
Okay.
with a balance.
Okay. Well, in any event, for our purposes, which is really what you're interested in, is we thought if we used a number of $1.5 million, that would be a good number. It's possible it could be a little bit larger in the end, depending on how this all plays out. But that certainly is one of the larger numbers that we've seen. I think it's the largest number that I've seen for capital improvements. So that's good, and we'll work with that as our sort of our bellwether and take it from there. Of course, this is one part of a process that includes the Select Board looking at this, the Finance Committee, and ultimately an article at town meeting. So that's it for, we'll call it the introductory remarks. On the agenda, if you don't mind, I'd like to dispense with the minutes of January 4th. That was item number 4. and I'd sent those out. And what is the pleasure of the committee on the minutes of January 4th?
These are
January
December
2nd?
5th.
It's December 5th.
This is December 5th.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
last
That
year.
would have been me, I would have printed out the wrong one. Did I print out the wrong one?
yeah.
But the thing is, we never did approve that one.
We never approved December 5th?
Nope.
That's why I put them here.
Yeah,
This is,
Well, we can approve,
this is December 5th, 24, right?
yeah.
Right.
This was 23.
And then January 2nd of 25, right? Oh,
No, approved minutes is
Oh, no, no, never mind.
December
Yeah, December.
5th of 2024.
well, anyway, it's not fatal. So we don't have to do anything with the December 5th, do we, from a year ago? Well, not a year ago,
24. yeah.
24, a
Yeah,
month.
do the
Month
December
ago.
ones.
Yeah, December 5th was last month.
And we did not approve those?
No,
No.
December 5th
No, that was our last.
January 4th, you're saying we didn't approve either?
of a year ago, yeah. Yeah, I got my notes, it says.
So could we
But
make a
nobody
motion to
wrote-
approve the January 4th?
But
It's on
nobody
the
wrote
agenda?
up the minutes. Nobody wrote up the minutes.
Oh, nobody wrote- Well, then it's tough to approve.
Yes.
You talking about 24?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
all right.
Well, what's the Robert's rules for approving minutes that haven't been sent around?
You mean the January 11th ones,
Nope, they were,
Mario?
Oh, I took, and I had the whole thing, and I,
So we're meeting again next week, right? The
Because
week
I thought we did that the
a week
first
after.
meeting.
after, so we could put it
January
up.
11th?
Yeah, we can put it
Yeah.
on. Why not, okay,
no,
so why don't
it's
we,
January 4th of 23.
Oh, 2 years ago.
23,
2
huh?
years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Al, you should have been here. This wouldn't have happened.
So we can skip that.
All right, so
Let's do the December 5th.
we'll task the town administrator with getting all this together and presenting it to us at the next meeting before our deliberation. But I did send you the minutes of our last meeting,
Yep.
Yes,
December
good.
5th.
Yep.
and I had it printed out at home, but I didn't bring it because I thought we'd have it here.
Would you like that one?
We do.
I have 2 copies.
But, yeah, this is it. I'm just looking at something at the moment, if you don't mind. Yeah, this is where we discussed the next meeting date. So today we're meeting, obviously, and then the next date, we're going to go to Tuesday meetings. So this is the last one. Okay.
And that'll be on Tuesday, what? Did I hear you say there wasn't one
It's
next week?
the day after Martin Luther King. I think it's the 20, I can't read that from you.
21st?
21st.
First,
That's our next meeting?
yeah.
Okay.
That'll be a fun night.
January 21st. I'm gonna put it on my phone.
At 4:30 or 4?
What's the pleasure of the committee? Is 4 doable?
For me.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. That's the first day of back to school for me. So I probably won't be leaving my work till like 7, and I know I'm the person who wanted the Tuesdays, right? So if you want to do the 4, I just don't know if I can get here.
Okay, that's all right. Why don't we plan it for 4 then, for that date, and do the best you can.
It was 22nd,
Tuesday, the 21st,
21st. Thanks.
and I'll see you at FinCom later on that night.
Yeah, it's always
Oh,
fun.
snap.
Yes.
Really?
Yes, or 2.
Anyway, we'll approve all of the minutes in the past, in the present, at the next meeting.
And how about the future? You might as well add on a few more dates.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll approve those ahead of time.
And Jimmy, would you be taking today's minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be all caught up. If that's our only problem, we're lucky folks, aren't we? Okay, so, now that I've shuffled my papers around. So this is where we start talking about the ranking. There were no more, except for maybe the elevator and the Council on Aging. We start to discuss these and try to put them in some order for ranking and see where that takes us. I've done some of that myself to see if that would work with a $5 million, $1.5 million budget. Obviously, we have more than that anyway, and that's usually the case, so we have to make some decisions. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. What Tim King used to do is send us home and have us do homework, and we'd come back in with rankings. The last time I think we did this, we just talked it through, and said, what do you think about going right down the line, and what are the feelings? Are there strong feelings for, and we rank them 1, 2, and 3, and then we see what we've got. And somebody has to tally this all up, but it's really, now it's a question of how strongly we feel about each area. So unless there's an opposition, I'll go through each one and say, what do you think? How important is it? Is it a 1? Is it a 2? And at the moment, this doesn't have to be binding. This will be sort of like a warm-up, and then we'll see what we've got. And then we may have to make some alterations based on the way this goes. And that's what we do until we get to the end and then have a list for the warrant article, hoping that that list would also meet muster with the Finance Committee and the Select Board. So I'll just soldier on unless somebody tells me to stop or to pour a pause. The first group, and Jim, you can add flavor to these, and particularly the flavor that I'm interested in is, like with the cemetery, would that be funded by the Cemetery Perpetual Fund? And that, of course, would have an influence on whether or not we're going to do it. If we've got the money, then for something like that, we might want to do it anyway because we've got the money, and we can't spend that money on something else. So we have a couple of things like that, I suppose, and that would be good to know, but you can help us with that. So I'll just start at the top. General government, and these are the fiscal year 2026 requests on the right. They're most of them yellow. The blues are the totals, I guess. And the first one is the library HVAC, $103,000. I think this, the people from the library said this was an important one for them. What's the general feeling of the committee on this item? Are there any thoughts, any sentiments?
It's been more than 1 year since they've been requesting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd like to, where we haven't approved something in the past, to maybe give that a little priority, maybe not priority, maybe just a little more urgency in the spirit of fair play, because some of these just missed the cut. I don't recall where the library HVAC ended up last year, but I do know it was, as you point out, Muriel. It's
That
talked
was-
about, but it didn't get done. So what's, we put a 1 on this, or a 2?
I have a question. Hi. Was there any, like, Friends match to that? I know they have, like, that, the Friends of the Library
This was the actual cost from the estimates that they had. I will say, it's my understanding they're still working.
Okay.
We haven't had the luxury in the years to like replace things that are still working. We usually wait till they fail and we spend more money to fix them at that point, but, yeah, they are still functioning right now.
So I wasn't here, so my apologies for that. So it is still working at the library? Because okay.
Yeah, and it's funny, on last year's spreadsheet, they put it, the library HVC, future years, after 29. Look.
And it had $70,000 too, right?
So they were requesting it early last year, but
Yeah,
we
and it-
spread them out over
yeah.
the years too.
Yeah,
That wasn't necessarily them.
no, that was us.
That was-
Muriel, what's the number you have on that item for last year?
This
Is it
70,000?
Yeah, okay, then I must be looking at the right thing here. This is dated 1/8/24, Jim.
Yeah,
So this is
I
last
got it,
year's.
we got it
And
in
I think,
27.
were they going to try to look into, see if there was some
Grants or something?
grants or other funding that they could get for that? Or energy rebates or something?
Yeah, so Kathy Stanley, our energy consultant, I think was going to take a look at that. That would have been pricing, they may have been able to get better pricing, but
Yeah, it would still,
I don't think what needs to be changed would change.
Well, the obvious question is, if it was 70 last year, now it's 103, I know things have gone up in price, that's a steep increase. We probably need to get some clarification on this.
So all that being said, I do think it's a building that, and a resource that everybody in town uses, and it's important that that they have some air conditioning. So I think that would be important to know, like the status of it.
Sure, yeah.
Well, it's all working right now.
Yeah, but they're old. One is 17 years old, the rooftop unit, and the humidity unit is 14 years old. And they've been doing repairs up to approximately 7,000 last year on them.
Yeah, that's another question, is what, are we getting chewed up with
And then
maintenance costs?
then the humidity control keeps track of the history room. That's very important in there.
Yeah,
So if it happens all of a sudden, we'd have to come up with the money to fix it.
yeah.
So I would rank it a 3 or a 2, that's my opinion. I'm open to everybody else.
I would suggest a 2.
two,
Yeah, me too. Two.
Okay. I'll put that down as a 2. Again, this is all tentative, based on more information, but that'll do that. Now, the town hall painting, we're happy to say that the price is the same as it was last year. Couldn't get it a little cheaper, maybe, no?
It's getting more money.
Yeah, I don't think we're ready at this point. It definitely needs to be done. There's no question that we need to get this place painted.
Interior or exterior?
Exterior, well, interior too, but we're looking exterior.
Is there CPC money for that?
There is CPC money. Yeah, we'd have to go back before them, which means we wouldn't go back before them until next year. So I think
we'll put it
it's a
as a,
priority 1, but I'd put it as a 3.
Okay, agree.
Me too.
So looking forward to next year, Jim, how do you see this playing out? Will we be looking to move it up in the ranking to like a 2 or a 1?
Yeah, I'm hoping if we can get it up to a 1 next year and get CPC funding.
Okay. Just making a note of this. Okay, well, that's a big item, so we don't have to do it this year. I guess that's good, although we might have more money this year than we're going to have next year.
Right.
This is $1.5 million that we're talking about, and the $3 million overall for free cash is quite unusual. But you can take it one step at a time, 1 year at a time. Okay, the next item was the building inspector truck, $50,000. And did they have a truck now? Maybe you can refresh our memory.
you know,
So we have 1 truck here that's used by the maintenance staff, and Ralph currently uses his own car. Ralph is out for a few weeks, and we have a temporary building inspector, and he's going to share the truck with the maintenance guy while he's here temporarily.
I thought Ralph used the electric vehicles.
He does.
he does sometimes.
He uses it,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, he does. He does
Yeah,
use
but
electric.
Unless he's got someplace that he has to go that's like impassable with the electric car.
Yeah.
Then he uses his own personal vehicle, his own truck.
So I'm having difficulty gauging the importance of this. Is it really a 1, or is it a 2? Is it something we can get by with another
I think we
year?
can get by another year.
I'm gonna put that one as a 3.
I think it was
Is that the sentiment? 3?
3.
3, 3s are not going to get done this year. That's code for not getting done.
Let's put a next.
But at least if you get a 3 this year, you might get a 2 next year. And there is some desire to do that, because sooner or later, you pay the piper, right? All right, but for now, a 3. And now the cemetery truck, is this being paid for with perpetual care funds?
We can, yes, and it's definitely needed. Their existing truck is falling apart.
And right next door to it is the cemetery expansion. That's also, I assume, perpetual.
Yeah, I
care
don't
fund.
know if we can get all of that out of perpetual care. I don't think we'll get 400 out of perpetual care. We might be able to get half of it.
Why is that? Isn't there $1 million in there?
There's the non-expendable and then the expendable.
Yeah, we've got to look into how to use the non-expendable.
We don't. The idea is that the non-expendable sits there, earns the interest to, that becomes the expendable amount.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've got, what did we look at? Like eight or 900 in the
If,
interest.
I was going to say, the expendable amount, I think, is 800 or 900,
Yeah.
around, 7, 8, 900, which means we have enough in there, it's just bringing it way down.
And how long would it take to rebuild that?
Couple years.
Is the rebuilding of
Depends on
that
interest.
based on the number of sales?
Whoever does.
No,
How many
that's based on the
people buy?
interest rate.
The sale of the lots actually goes towards the non-expendable, so
Okay.
that sits there.
So it looks like we have most of the money for these two items, in one way, shape, or form, right? So does that say let's do
They're
it?
definitely priorities one, regardless of how we pay for them. We're running out of space at the cemetery.
And people are dying to go there.
I wonder if maybe we put some, some from both, like maybe 100,000 from CIPC and then the remaining from perpetual care, because is that funds used for the upkeep of
It
the
is
cemetery?
somewhat, there's the
What is it,
cemetery,
40,000 each year is used to supplement the budget.
That's-
Salaries, expenses, that kind of stuff, so, yeah.
I mean, we could always get the truck from CIPC and put the other to the perpetual care or something like that, too.
Or a portion thereof,
Yeah.
Building up to that 1.5 million. I mean, I'm just making up numbers, but if it's 100 from one pot and 300 from the other.
Yeah,
Because again, that's an important resource for our town, not just the people who are dying to go there, but the people who are visiting those
Well,
who
yeah.
they love that are there. So I think
Yeah.
it's just important. So I would give it a one.
Yeah, it's funny, when we were looking at the 5-year capital plan, we looked at that and said, we don't really think about it that much, but you gotta have that. You gotta have that running right. Believe me, it's,
and
important.
unfortunately, we're running out of space. We're going to need more expansion than what this is.
well,
We're going to need another location.
yeah. That's been looked at in the past, though, hasn't it? That's been looked at in the past, wasn't there a study done with the Pickens Helene kind of?
Yeah, we don't have a space.
Yeah, there was a study years ago. I don't know what the conclusion was. I don't think they had a solution.
Yeah, if I recall reading that, I think Jane Lose was part of that, and there was, every piece of property that was possible, there'd be all kinds of things that said, well, you can't do it for this reason, that reason, the other reason. Well, anyway, that's not our problem today, but it is long-term, something to think about. All right, so we're going to put these down as a 1. We don't have to solve the funding problem at the moment. We can talk more about that next time. But I agree. I mean, this is an important thing. Okay, the next one was the IT server cluster. I'm kind of lost on those things. I can see the need for it, but if you really ask me what this is really do and how important is it really, I don't know, so I have to defer to others. Do you recall the texture of the conversation?
Yeah, well, no, yes and no. I'm not gonna be able to explain. In summary, he said it duplicates what they have. So if one server goes down, the other server comes back up.
And what do these servers feed, Jim? I mean, what is critical and what is, could go away for a few days or whatever, and we wouldn't miss a beat?
So really, this is all public safety as well.
Okay, all right, that's
All of the town's critical data resides on independent servers. A failure of the server requires a rebuild from bare metal, which requires downtime. It is a critical component, and having a redundant system will increase the system uptime, which will enable all departments, including public safety, to continue to operate.
I say, we lose our computers?
You can't collect the taxes.
We can't, it's very interesting. There's how much we cannot do without computers in
All
this
right.
place.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Not to
Yeah, I-
mention that the server also, part of the server is like the 911,
Right.
Okay.
you know?
All right, so it's a public safety
It's
issue.
everything, yes.
Gotcha, okay.
So that's a 1.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I would think
I'm
so.
getting
The
it.
server does the, for dispatch, for the dispatcher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are several different ones, but they all kind of run on a loop.
Right.
Yeah, it's.
I would
fire,
imagine they're a
police,
separate one,
here.
though, right?
No.
They'd have to be separate, because that should always have backup to the, where, like, not that what you do isn't important, but not having 911 and dispatching, I thought that was operated differently.
It's all, they're all looped together.
So it's a redundant system that they're looking for, not.
That doesn't make
Nothing's
sense.
wrong particularly
leave it
with
with
what we
us.
have. It's- Okay.
Provides another layer of safety, I guess.
Okay.
Added measure.
All right, we'll put it down as a 1 and see where that goes. Unless there's objection, I don't, not hearing any, not seeing any, nobody's throwing stones at me, so I guess it's all right. The next one, we did talk about, I recall, at the Council on Aging passenger van grant match. So Beverly outlined her process of getting these vans and has had some pretty good success in that over the years. But at the moment, to do the next one, I don't recall all the details, but it's in here. She just needs the 20,000 for the match. Sounds to me like it's a good deal, because the vehicle is worth a lot more than that, and a lot of these come with matches. So,
Now, I thought she said she was going to see if the Friends
she did.
would pay
They might not.
Okay.
We don't know right up front.
up
That's the
front,
problem.
but yeah, we,
Maybe we need to ask her at the next meeting.
All right,
Because we got Friends people come to the meeting too, so.
yeah.
But they're replacing one that's 13 years old and has over 130,000 miles on it.
So-
And she's been getting grants for most of the vans, and last year she got a free one. Fell out of the sky, it was completely free. We gave the school some of them, the old ones.
So I would say even if there is Friends money, 20,000 is fairly low, and there's lots of expenses that they have that I'm sure if this is covered by CIPC money, that the 20,000 that the Friends give will cover some other expenses. And there's such a large population that utilize those services that I would give that a 1 for funding from here. That's just my,
The actual cost of the van is 117,000.
Yeah, yeah.
I would
Oh,
agree with you,
it's-
Melissa. I mean, it's pretty low-hanging fruit. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
a big deal. It's not going to kill our free cash or our budget, and the population only continues to age,
Yeah.
to grow, so.
Very true.
And we're using more and more transportation. We're looking for another driver because we don't have enough drivers. Somebody's out sick and you don't have anybody to cover.
Okay, 1 is, I'm putting down at the moment.
I got enough with what I do.
Agreed.
And you can guess, unless anybody objects. Now, the next item, 1.9 million, we don't know if we can spend the money on that. This is for planning? Is that what this means?
Yeah, I think they were looking for a bike path, but this is down the road. You know,
Yeah.
even design, if this goes to
Right.
Mass, you're looking like a 3 to 5 year design period to go through Mass Highway, so
In the bike path, I'm probably going to need grants to get
yes.
that done along the way here. Okay, that was my understanding. Anybody else have a different understanding on that? Okay, so that was total general government. Next 2 items are police. The 3 cruisers, that's usually
Every year.
the situation every year. And in the past, we've usually called those a 1 because as the chief goes through this, he shows us how many miles these vehicles have. They're right up there. I think the tractor is worthy of more discussion. I mean, for the moment, I'll pencil in a 1 for the cruises, but I'm willing to entertain other thoughts on that but the tractor was, we're talking about snow plowing. Sometimes it snows and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know.
And it's for lawn maintenance too, cutting grass.
That's true. I'm just trying to figure out, for $65,000, we could do a lot of snow plowing and a lot of cutting the grass.
I think, yeah, and it was the police and fire, I believe, that were
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah,
using
that
it.
helps.
Yeah.
That helps. I don't know, this one I'm sort of like neutral on. I can,
What are they using now?
they had a picture one, didn't there? Was it an older one?
Yeah, and they can't plow snow if it's too deep, they have to have the highway do it, and they haven't got enough manpower on the highway.
Yeah, yeah.
So the tractor they have doesn't necessarily plow the snow. That would
It
lift the
doesn't just-
snow up over the fence
Yeah.
if
They
it got
can't
too
get
much
rid
snow.
of the snow, it just stacks it up, pushes it in piles, and leaves no room for vehicles.
Well, this is one, and, I mean, this is not being made up, this is a real need, it's just a question of
How real?
how important is this need?
If we have a lot of snow, it's important.
Yeah.
Which we haven't had.
We haven't lately.
No,
No,
just a couple of
so having
years.
said
How's
that,
that
we just
crystal
missed two
ball
storms,
working?
but hear about chinny chin chin. I mean,
So we purchased, they had a brand-new pickup truck that was purchased through ARPA last year with a plow. And was intended for the two stations, replaced an older one. So they have the pickup with the plow. When they get a lot of snow, the highway department goes over. It's just the only thing, the highway department can't always go over there exactly when they need it. They were looking for the tractor for a couple of reasons. One was because when they get a lot of snow, they want to get it out of the parking lot, so they lift it up over the fence, but that doesn't seem
And the other thing was the lawns.
in the lawns.
The tractor they got for the lawns takes, I forget how many hours to cut, and this will reduce the amount of time that it takes, because it's bigger. Cuts
Well-
more.
The way I look at this too, this is a legitimate request, I'm not making light of it. When I look at the cruisers, I say to myself, we gotta do that. That's public safety. Tractor, sooner or later, the snow's gonna get plowed, one way or the other. Now, I may bite my tongue someday saying that, it'll be, 25 inches, but, I don't know,
We
I'm not
could
sure
always
how-
do,
Tell me how I should feel about this.
the other thing we could do is do 2 cruises and do the tractor. Something like that.
Yeah, I'd
Can-
be
can-
amenable to that, I don't know if the people would.
Could we do, the amount of the 3 cruises, but say something different, so then they can have the autonomy to do 2 cruises and a tractor, or, you mentioned they have a truck and a plow, so I think that would do the plowing, so then, a tractor, maybe they could get it for a little bit less, 65 grand's a pretty great, nice tractor.
My opinion, we need to get it back on the highway, the grass cutting
Yeah.
and the plowing. To have all these different departments with their own vehicles that they gotta maintain, store,
Right.
service, it just doesn't make sense. So, cost-wise, we'd be better off, and we're looking to do that, we just, it's not finalized in this year's budget, to get another labor over in the highway department so that they can cut the grass in the summer. I think I think at this point, I think we can get away without the tractor.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and honestly, but I'm not sure why they wouldn't make public safety a priority to plow, and I know I'm not a highway department person, but, our ambulances are,
Oh, I think
Incredibly
they
important.
do, yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so I'm not hearing a hue and cry on this one, right? Is this a 2 or 3, or?
3,
Three.
but a 1 for the cruisers, right?
One for the cruisers.
Yes.
Pardon me, yeah. I would just table the tractor until there's some more, because I agreed, Jim, that even a few months ago, I think it was when, in front of the Finance Committee, every little pod has their own set of equipment. We're probably spending 100 grand, I'm making up a number, on buying radial mowers for the library, for this, for that, for the other. And then when you start adding up all the other expenses, there's got to be some consolidation.
Yep.
Yeah.
And good for the people that work in the different departments for picking up the responsibility, but I don't think it's the most efficient way to, deal with this.
So I think we can address it. We haven't finalized the budget by any means, but we're looking
So,
at. we're
so
looking at it.
then we're putting it as a 3 to kick the can down the road?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are we being surveilled? Is that a drone or something? Okay, a good discussion. And continuing, now, the next one is some big numbers here, fire department. All right, so they have $950,000 for replacement of engine 5. Engine, is it engines, give me this again, 5 and 2, and one, what's,
It would,
how many are there?
it would replace engines 5 and 2 with one new engine.
One engine. $950,000, he talked about that. Do you recall, does anybody recall if Chief had indicated there'd be grants for this?
They
They
have
have
been
been good at getting
applying,
grants.
they've been applying for a grant the last couple of years, but they haven't received it. It's very competitive. He's gonna apply again this year, but he didn't seem real positive about it.
Well,
We start putting money away towards the fire engine, like a chunk?
He did say that it was, they order it this year, and it takes literally 3 years to build the engine, and that you don't have to pay it until the third, when you receive it. So we could put a third away. I mean, the only problem with that is when he orders it, we have to make the commitment that we'll pay the whole amount now if he places the order this year. We could give him, like you say, $350 this year and so forth, but who's to say whether we'll have that money in free cash next year or
But
the
we're on
year
the hook.
after? But we're on the hook, is right. Once we order it, we're on the hook for the full $950.
So how about just putting money away for it and not ordering it? That's another way of doing it.
Because it takes 3 years to get it, and he
Well,
can't
he
wait
got-
3 years to.
Yeah, but if we don't give him the whole amount, he ain't gonna get anything.
Right, but he's not gonna, if he can't wait 3 years to order it because it's already passed.
Yeah, it's old.
So this is like the
31 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
third vehicle, right? So he's got the frontline vehicles, and he used this vehicle last year when one of them got hit and was out of service for a few months. I can't argue with fire safety, right? Somebody tells me, you know,
Yeah.
I have no expectation.
Especially in light of what's going on in California, right?
So I think for this exercise, it's a 1, right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's how I
We'll
feel.
look at,
But you're right, you could do an article and put in a third over the next 3 years. Not put it in stabilization, because if you put it in the capital stabilization,
No,
then
it
it has
needs
to
to be
vote
reserved.
at town meeting. If you just put it in an article and then let it roll from year to year and add to it in the second year and add in the third year, then,
We'll have the money in the third year,
right,
but we just gotta make sure, like I say, if
Right.
it gets voted down in 1 year, we're sitting there going, okay, where does the other money
We
go?
got 2/3 of a truck.
yeah, that's not optimal, right?
Yeah,
So I'm in favor of a 1 as well, and I like the idea of splitting it up over 3 years, or maybe even over 2 years, or over 3 years, but put maybe half of it now and then the other 2 split. I mean, over the last few years, we've had quite a bit of money in free cash. I mean, do you think it's ever going to be lower than, 500,000, where we wouldn't be able to?
you never
know.
know.
no way of knowing.
But have we ever
absolutely
had it over,
We've
less
had
than
negative
5?
free
We've had
cash.
negative.
In the 20 years I've been here, we have had 2 negative free cash.
So over the last 5 years?
No, we've been good.
So, I mean, I'm in favor of one, either do half now, or, and then 2 years, the other 2 halves, because we do have quite a bit. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, well, good thoughts. We have the capital stabilization fund, and on the thing I had before, we're putting more money into that. It was your idea, wasn't it? You articulated that. And we should name it after you. So, do you know how much is in there now?
I do not.
So we're looking for another, well, depending on which one 500,000. No, this one doesn't have that in there, right?
So we can look maybe at some different funding, so that's what we did over here on the alternate one. We
Yeah.
put in 500,000 into the capital stabilization. You know, there may be some other options with assessors overlay and some other things where we can pull some money out.
Well, we could always fund it CIPC, partially CIPC this year, and like you say, depend on the stabilization. If we get stuck next year or the year after, we'd have to hit stabilization.
Or they could order it next year, right? We could put money in this year and put money in next year if it's in order it a year out.
Yeah, well, we agree that it's a 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a question of the
Of
funding.
how to
How
fund.
how
How much are
do,
we funding?
Yeah, how much?
I mean,
Also-
I'm going to be a contrarian, only because, and I know it's not going to be the most popular, it is a 1. We do need it. We've got a 31-year-old truck that, if I remember correctly, was a hand-me-down.
Yep,
So, you know, I don't think the truck owes us a darn thing. And I also know that a lot of the firemen are handy, and they've put the thing together with, you know, rubber bands and bubble gum for a lot of years. So it's about time that we stepped up to the plate. My concern is that next year, if there's free cash, everybody looks at the big number, whatever that number might be, $1.5 million, and we get into this battle every year about who grabs what. And if we're on the hook for $950, and we're in a battle for year 2 and year 3 to pay for it, I just want to make sure that somehow it's sequestered. And my contrarian side tells me, let's bite the bullet now when we've got $3.5 million, put it into a fund that's interest-bearing, and have the funds sequestered so that when the bill comes, we need it. That's, again, it's probably not popular, but that's kind of where I'm coming from on it. Not the need, but the way to fund it.
Well, what would help with that is, looking at last year's, the fire department doesn't have any needs for trucks in the foreseeable future other than this one. It's all blank, so I don't know how far this goes out.
we got them a forestry, we just spent, I think, like 300,000 on another truck for the fire department.
Yeah. But I mean, after.
This wasn't on their list last year, I don't think.
Yeah, it was.
Uh,
Well, actually, no, you're right. It actually, on this particular exhibit, it shows up for 27. So, but does that mean they're okay with not looking for it this year? It can go one more year and then they want to get it? I mean, my view would be, they made a pretty good case for an old truck, and we probably ought to start dealing with the
And if
problem.
I remember correctly, a couple of years ago, the same truck was around $450,000 or $500,000, and now it's $950,000.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any cheaper.
no.
All right, well, but I think your idea, Alice, I mean, doing something creative here in terms of how I do this. But are we talking about, if we designated a number 1, it's going to be ordered now? Or is it,
It
Right.
doesn't have to be.
Right now, we're just seeing what we have for ones, right? And then we'll look and see what the totals are.
oh, no, yeah, but I mean, if it were to survive in some
If we were to
fashion.
fund partial or all of it, he could order it day after town meeting. But like he said, it takes 3 years, so we wouldn't actually pay it
Okay,
for 3 years. But he could conceivably order it day after town meeting.
it would be, unless we have Armageddon,
Right.
we'd have some money some way, by hook or by crook. Okay, well, good. It's a 1, funding TBD for the moment. Okay, good discussion. Now, Station Car 5, that's, what's that? I'm not sure what we're talking about here. What is that, what is
I
station
think
car?
that's like an SUV type car.
It was a 2010 Explorer that they're replacing.
That's in the main.
And was he going to replace that with a Explorer or pickup truck? I thought he said he thought the pickup truck would be more practical. 'cause
I
they
think
could-
so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought he said
I
that.
think he was looking at getting a truck instead of the Explorer.
Well, my gut reaction is if we're gonna have to bite the bullet on the engine of 950,000, I'm not in the mood for another 75, just to be
That's-
frank about it.
I was going to say, I'm thinking that's a 2 or a 3.
And we just purchased 2 vehicles for them, 2
Yeah.
four-wheel drive vehicles through
Yep.
ARPA last year, and then we had the pickup truck through ARPA, and then an ambulance through ARPA. So they've had a pretty good run on, doesn't mean it's not needed, but they've had a good run on new equipment.
Yeah, we haven't ignored their needs, so we'll put that as, for the moment. Now, the Cascade system, he described that as life-saving, absolutely necessary. Was that what you think? I mean, I didn't quite understand.
I think that was something to fill the air tanks that they use. And
Yes.
it's
Yeah, I think so.
getting out of date, it's basically past its prime and getting out of date to fill those air tanks. So that is kind of,
And they can have it longer or something if, isn't that what he was saying? Was that the one where they can have it on longer? Am I misremembering?
What he's saying is that parts are being discontinued and they will not be servicing the ones they've got. It'll be impossible. For example, the system at Station 2 no longer has a motherboard available for replacement should it be needed. They must fill our tanks following any use. Without a function, we'll have no option but to travel to another fire department to fill them.
Did he mention if it was a recurring expense? Or was this like a one?
Now, this would be one time. I think there's 2 systems, right? One in
Yep.
each station, roughly
Yep.
75,000 each.
Yep, they said. One was
Which would be an
purchased in
option.
2007, the other one's purchased 2009.
I mean, an option also to save some money there would be to purchase one this year and consider another, we wouldn't necessarily have to get both of them replaced
At
at
the same
once.
time.
Yeah, because-
75 each? Oh, we can
Probably
consider that.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm boxed in here.
Yeah, because you want the fire engine.
I mean, you can't deny our employees what they need to do to do their job, and this could be life-threatening. So it seems like we'd have to do something on that basis, and I know this adds up.
So we can put a 1 down for now. I mean,
Yeah.
we may have too many 1s, and we may have to cut some of these
Yeah.
back anyway, right, as we move forward.
Okay, now,
I just want to say, I think a 1, and I think for both stations, I think funding at the 150, because if there's a fire at one end or another, then they need to refill it for some reason. I think of the safety and, I don't know, that's it.
but the thought is about maybe, can we do one now and another one next year?
Well, I'd like to know how does that put our firefighters, or does it put our firefighters at risk at all? Like, is there any risk associated with doing that? If it's just,
He didn't indicate that.
okay. All right, then that makes sense.
But we could follow up. and
Yeah.
See, tell them what we're thinking here and get a different view on that, or another view. Okay, the rescue boat. I don't know, I always thought the harbor master was responsible for rescuing people, but this was not talking about the river, you're talking about lakes and streams, and I don't know.
Ponds and stuff. I think it's important, but I'm still saying a 3 for now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I could go with a 2 or a 3. I think we're kind of running out of 1s, as Jim said, and subsequently running out of money, $1.5 million. It's not a question of the need, but
Yeah, it's just, I don't know how many incidents we're talking about in a year, and, we haven't had a rescue boat, right? Have we ever had a rescue boat here?
Yeah, we did.
I think-
Something tells me we had one at one time. Didn't they,
Oh, we had one that made
Build it,
news,
or-
for years, right?
I thought we had one that they had like rebuilt.
I remember one too.
About the time that the fire station was built, I think they had
I
one.
did, now that you mention it, yeah. I'm not sure they ever used it.
No, it was just like a little dinghy or something, just to, like, out for the ponds, or, it was small. It wasn't like a big anything.
Well, see, that's the other question, is to see whether or not a modified rescue boat, like a Carolina skiff, for example, that is probably half the price of that, might be adequate, and, cut some of that down. Maybe that's worth investigating, maybe it's not.
Okay, well, for now, two or three, and we move on. Now, the others are, let's see, maintenance, windows, fuel tanks, hot water heater, siding. Again, these are things that sooner or later you gotta do them, but it seems like you don't have to do them always this year. But I don't know which is more important. I mean, fuel tanks, I'd worry about a little bit.
Yeah.
The other things, I'd say,
I thought the fuel tanks, he was talking about trying to get a set of fuel tanks like this set here up at the other end of town that the other departments could also use, but it's, again, not necessarily a priority.
I got the impression they were pushing for the fuel tanks.
They were, that's my impression as well, that they're inadequate, they are ready to, I shouldn't say they're ready to,
Well, they come down here to fuel up.
yeah, so, look at the inefficiency of that,
Right.
I think they still use the
No,
other
they
one.
do.
They do?
He mentioned that
It's a double
there's
wall,
it's a
right?
double wall, and the piece between
right,
is
that's
starting
right.
to go, and then you'll end up with more water in the fuel. So replacing the tanks, but then he was also talking about getting on the same system that the highway department is on, so that anybody else could use those, like if they're plowing and they need to, they could use the same
Fob.
key fobs that they have here
Yep.
for police and highway when they're in the north end. Because again, if you're in the north end and you need like the police have to drive all the way down here, highway's gotta come all the way back here.
yeah, it's a 30-mile
So-
round trip,
Right,
Pretty much.
give or take,
So, yeah.
Can't we just work with like some gas station or something? Have a
like us, go to the gas station. Well, here's,
Good question.
for conversation purposes, I could see putting a high number on the fuel tanks, one or two, but then the other ones, threes. Because that's where we're gonna put our money if we do it
One on the
all.
fuel tanks?
Yeah, I was gonna say it two, because I'm just
Yeah, I
not
would say
sure
two.
about that. There's no inconvenience down here because these tanks are relatively close to this main fire station.
Could also check with the fire chief and see what the priority would be for him. Maybe he would say that's a priority over the Cascade system or vice versa,
Yeah,
well,
going forward.
all right, so for the moment, we'll put threes on the others, but that's subject to change, all this is subject to change. We'll put a one next to the fuel tanks for the moment. It's temporary, and we'll be talking about it again. Okay, soldiering on, as they say. The item for $5 million, Tom talked about it for general purposes, but I think he was aware that we don't have the money for this, and this argument as to whether this is really capital.
That would be a bond issue.
Yeah. So I don't think we need to deal with that. I don't know how we could deal with it. Well, Melissa, how do you feel about that?
No, I agree. I think it was something to put on the radar.
Yeah.
That's going, or, one, it would be beneficial to the town to have that, but yeah, that's why it's not listed as one of the priorities.
Okay. Well, for record keeping, I'll just put a 3 on it for now, but it's understood it's a sort of a different breed of cat. Now, these numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are those the priorities, Jim? Was that what that
Yes.
was?
I believe
Yes.
so, from the
Yes.
school department.
Yeah. So that's helpful. So the security upgrades were 1, and that's 235,000. I would be amenable to that. I don't know how others feel. It's kind of hard to say no to that. Then the electrical at the elementary school. I don't know. They have it as a 2. Again, 2s might not make the cut here. I don't know.
I think that was just their
Yeah,
preference
their
in order.
preference, that's not,
Their preference.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So these are all the school's priorities, so if you were to say, they would say all of them are ones that need to be done, but they knew that obviously they couldn't get
Yeah.
that amount, because that's too much. But looking at those four things, the security upgrades, the AC, the playground, and the generator, was what they considered the top priorities. So they would give them the ones, I guess, in looking at it. I think the West AC electrical was because it gets really hot in the elementary school for the students. And in order to fix it, there needs to be an upgrade in the system. And then, yeah, so that's where you're at. But, yeah.
So we should just maybe take their numbers, plug them in for now, because that's what they had come up with. In other words, the electricals are 2.
I think they're saying
No,
all of
they're-
them are a 1.
Correct.
Oh, they're all 1.
But if they had a preference of which ones were to be done, they wanted the security upgrades first, the electrical second, the playground third, and the generators fourth.
Right. So I think looking at, trying to take my eyes off of being like a school committee member, right, and looking at it as this committee, what I would suggest is looking at each individual item, kind of like we did for the fire department. And the reason that they did the 1, 2, 3, and 4 is because I made that suggestion, because I knew in the past, when we've been here as a group, it kind of was like the fire department. Like, we didn't really know, well, what is their preference? Is it, like you said, is it the cascade system, or is it the fuel tanks? So what they're saying here is, if we were to look at all of them, you know, those are the ones that they would want funded the most. So you might look at it and say, well, the $700,000 for the AC electrical, maybe we can't fund it. Maybe that's something plausible that we could do over a number of years or something, because that is a high. But then if you look at the Mac Playground and the generators, those are both $300,000. So is that more, you know, and it's also thinking about it, what do you think the priorities would be too? You know, as we've had discussions for other items.
So with my sloppy math, including the security upgrades, just adding up number ones, we're at 1.2 million. I may have missed something, but generally speaking, we're at about 1.2 million. So,
But after this, we don't have too many items left, thankfully. We're getting to the bottom of the page. But on your math, I don't think it's sloppy. It sounds pretty good. Did you contemplate these 4 items?
no, I
didn't.
I just was adding up the column, and when I got to security upgrades, I got to 1.2, so we have a differential of 300,
Yeah.
give or take, if we stick with the 1.5.
Well, we could list these. all
Oh,
as
I'm
ones for now.
sorry to interrupt you. I did not include, because it's such a big number, I did not include in that number the replacement of the engine,
The fire engine.
the
right?
fire engine.
Yeah, because that's almost $1 million there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that would be out of ones long before.
yeah.
now.
So I would ask, though, that if we're going to be looking at these, because the school's at the bottom, like any other town department would be, I don't think we should be, and I'm not saying, maybe you're not doing this, but that, well, we have 1.2 million that we've already spent, so we only have a little bit left to spend here. I think they need to be considered based on each individual item.
Oh, I wouldn't
Right.
disagree.
No,
I'm
no.
not. I'm-
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not saying
All right.
that.
Thank
No,
you.
no, I wouldn't disagree. We've got to reorder the ones.
We'll put the
Yeah.
schools on top of the list next year.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, no, I was going to suggest, it sounds corny, but just label them all as ones for now, and then we're going to have to discuss it and say, now, how serious are we about that one versus that one?
That one, yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
have that
Yeah, no,
triage. Then we're not second-guessing the school's judgment. That would be my thought, but, you know, this is all tentative. I've said that 8 times already.
So the electrical upgrades, does that include the HVAC system too, or is that just the electric, do you know?
It's AC installation with univents and mini split upgrades. So I believe it does.
And again, is that anything that have they worked with anybody on energy rebates and so forth, or whatever?
We did talk about that. I think that there was some calls made, but I don't think it's like within that number. So you're right, that could reduce the cost, for sure.
So is this for summer school use, is it for?
I think it's for for all year, right? But obviously, that's whenever the students are in the school. So whenever we have the hot weather. And then unfortunately, the months have kind of been changing. So sometimes you get really hot weather in September and then also in May.
Okay, so what's the, in terms of today's ranking, what do you want to do with these? You want to put twos on them, and the other ones, or ones, and debate it again next time? I mean, I don't think they're all equal, because we're talking about, well, I wasn't including the 8 million thing, that's a different, it's like the first one. So it's really between these, 5 items, of which we've already decided security upgrades are number one. So what do you want to do with the other 4? Again, this is all for the
Yeah,
moment.
the question is the electrical, the playground. Now, the playground, was that getting to the safety issues with the kids?
It is. So there's two things with the playground. One, it's a safety issue in regards to the playground being really old. And then two, it's the ability to have some of our children who have special needs be able to utilize the equipment.
Right. So maybe we should do this in reverse, Dick, and think about that the fields in Recreation House, I would assume would be a 3.
Yep.
I would assume that the lighting playing fields would be a 3.
Probably,
I'm not projecting, I'm just
Yeah,
saying that,
no,
that
that
in
would
terms of, the MAC playground, you made a pretty good case right there about special needs kids, safety issues and everything else, so, you know, it's either, in my opinion, either a 1 or a 2. I don't see it as a 3. Generators, if they need them, send the kids home for the day. They'll love you for it.
sometimes the old methods work, don't they?
Yeah.
All right, so again,
Right.
So
for now, what are we doing here?
playground's been on the list for a few years.
Yeah.
What has?
The playground.
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 Okay, and the lighting paying Philids here. Get my joke? We won't penalize for incorrect spelling.
Did I, what was that?
But
Lighting paying
what number do you want me to put next to that?
Paying,
We heard 2, we heard 1.
paying files.
Pilots.
We are paying.
For the playground, is that what you're talking about?
No, the playing fields, lighting the
The light-
current playing fields.
So, I mean, it's one of those things that, one of the things I talked about at the school committee is we have, the Fields and Recreation House, we have the lighting and playing fields. And, we have the bike path, we have all these recreation committees, recreation things, but then they're from, almost like what I think you talked about, Jim, with, not like centralizing something. So we've got the schools that are asking for this and rec asking for that. So I think for this conversation, it's probably a 3, but I think moving forward, it'd be really great to get departments together to talk about, because having a lighted playing field is such a great town activity, but it's not, safety of our students, making those upgrades. So I would probably say it's, as much as I'd love it, probably close to a 3 for the playing, for the
Just
lights.
lighting.
At this time, yeah. And the Fields and Recreation House. But I think those are important for our town, but not safety,
I mean, with those, the recreation house, the fields, the lighting, and the childhood education center, you're looking at 14, almost 15 million. I mean, that's something for bonding. It would be a case
Yeah.
of seeing if the people, putting it on as an article, see if, but it has to go
Right,
excluded.
right. But it's,
Can't afford to, a non-excluded debt.
but it's important for the schools to mention it, because these are
Yes.
needs that they have,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And then when you talk about the generators, and I don't know if you have that information when they talked about it. I know that there was an important reason for having the generators besides like if the like the,
Besides
like,
Sending them home.
yeah, which I'm in agreement with too. But for some reason, I think there was another reason for the generators.
It was replacing a generator too, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I know the generators are incredibly old.
Yeah, they said it was getting difficult to get parts and,
Just like ours.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, the bottom line, there's just so many needs here in town. Right?
Yeah.
We could go through this building and
Right.
come up with $2 million without blinking an eye, right?
But I think if you had to choose between the generators or the electrical for the West, it would be the West. So if you did, if you made the AC electrical a higher, and then, because it is a 2 versus the 4 for the generators.
They also said in the writing that the electrical is gonna be a 3-year project. It's 3 years.
So maybe I can also ask the superintendent and budget manager, Michelle, if that can be spread out the costs too.
yeah, well, maybe we can
Right.
get some clarity on these last few items here and start to rank them more seriously.
Lost it,
This would,
I think it's
the
a good
argument's
idea.
pro and con,
lost it. It's in there somewhere.
and we can clarify that. So for now, we can just put them down as 2s or something.
Okay.
But if you put them as a 3, they're probably not gonna make any cuts, so that's like the death knell. But a 2 can still implies
Has some
the
life.
possibility of fresh air, but, so why don't we do that just for now, for record keeping? But that's subject to
So
change.
it's a 1 for the security,
And
2
2s
for
the next
electrical,
three.
and
Yep,
playground was a 2 too?
yeah.
I thought the playground was a 1.
I'd say 1 for playground. but
Yeah, I
one or
have it
two.
as a 1.
I have no preference, that's fine. And then 2s for the next 2, or what do you want to do there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be a starting point for the next discussion. And we need some clarification. Would you be doing that, or can you?
Yeah, I'll ask the super and director to send that info over.
And Jim, you might want to ask the police chief if this year, does he really need 3 cruisers? Excuse me, or could he go down to 2?
Yep,
I don't know, maybe he needs 3, but if he could go down to 2, that $70,000, $80,000 could be shifted into
Okay.
another spot.
Okay, got that?
yep.
The only
Okay,
thing we haven't looked at is the highway truck.
yep.
yeah.
And
Last but
you're
not
right.
least is the highway heavy truck.
Heavy truck.
I think they made a compelling case. Again, gonna get another year out of it? I don't know. Jim, what do you think about this one?
I don't know. This is another department where we've bought quite a bit of equipment over the last few years.
Let me look at last year's requests from them.
Last year we had was the
truck.
excavator, the
It says we had a pickup
pickup truck.
truck,
Year before
dump
was the
truck,
mini excavator.
a trailer.
Last year was the,
I don't have vehicle.
Well, here's the rank, here's some last year.
pickup truck and highway trailer.
Yeah,
Year before, we had the excavator on wheels that cuts along the side of the road, and we also got them a backhoe from ARPA
Right.
about 2 years ago.
What was the heavy truck for? Like, is it a specific,
Yeah, it's like a big pickup truck with a dump on it, so it's like a very small dump truck, which they do use quite a bit. They might want it pretty beat up. If that's the one they're replacing, then it's. I can confirm with them how. It's funny though, whoever you talk to, it's terrible, needs to be replaced tomorrow, you know?
If it's that department, it's a 1. If it's us, it might be a 2.
All right, well, we'll put it down, for the moment, why don't I suggest a 2, just for discussion, and then we'll have at it after you get a discussion as to how serious is it. You know, I don't know, it's one of these, you gotta do it sooner or later, but can you get one more year, maybe? I don't know.
well, they are the department too that, when you talked about centralizing, they would need the equipment to be able to assist the other town, but they also need to have the budget to pay the people
Yep.
to work in the town.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's That's
So
today's,
those 222s with the generator and the heavy truck?
yeah. Less I wrote in,
Yeah.
correct on that, I thought I was. All right, well, that's good for today. That's the discussion we needed to have. The next meeting will be going into the same, basically the same title, review the request. Then we're going to start making some calls on that. We've got to pin down all the extra questions we had, so we know exactly.
Yeah, any of the questions we had on the ones.
And, exactly, and, excuse me, pull out the ones, as we discussed, and reorder those so that everybody gets a fair shake at the,
Yep. That's right. That's-
same bite of the apple, you know.
Yeah, like we're doing this within the categories, and that's
Yeah.
really not, at the end, you got to look at the whole thing.
Oh, picture.
Then you get, sometimes some different things come to light.
Jim, did you send this in an Excel to us?
I can.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Their topic's not reasonably anticipated. That's just one of those placeholder things. I don't think there's anything there, Jim, unless you know something that I don't know.
The only thing well, two things I want to mention. One is, we have and this hasn't come up from the infrastructure committee yet. Whether it comes to this committee or directly to the select board, I'm not sure, but we have a grant for $970-odd thousand from the federal government for Route 6 infrastructure, either sewer or water. And there's a match that's required for that, and I think that's about $275,000. So that's just something to keep in mind, whether,
And what's the grant for, Jim?
pretty much open anything to do with water, sewer along Route 6. So we could extend the water line, they could, well, we would need more for any type of sewer stuff, but the water line could always be extended with that.
I was gonna say, and I will say, as far as matching, we need to set aside, we gotta keep in mind, we need to set aside some extra funds for that anyway. Everybody's been applying for more grants all over the place. The COA I know does, the Board of Health is applying for grants, Planning Board, you know, and a lot of these grants, they require at least a certain amount of matching funds. You know, sometimes it's only 10 or 20,000, but if this department needs 20 and this one needs 10 and this one needs 30, it adds up pretty quick. Yeah, it adds up quick.
And we've been fortunate over the last few years, because we've had some ARPA money that we could use to kind of fill in those gaps, but that is gone,
Right.
yeah.
Now, when the individuals write the grants, is there someone that helps with identifying if there's expenses that are already in the operating budget that they can utilize? So, for example, the COA's director's salary, if she's going to be running a program, can they use part of her salary as matching versus, do you know what I'm saying?
Depends on the grants.
Yes, some of them have in-kind services.
Well, it's not necessarily in kind. You can call it in, sometimes it's in kind, but sometimes it's actually direct cost. So it depends on what the grants are. So I used to do that in a past life, so if anybody wants to have a conversation about that, because sometimes you can utilize it, sometimes you can't, if it's a brand-new program. But if it's, you know, it all depends on the grant. So it's just sometimes people don't think about that, and I just know that that can be used, so.
No, that's good.
Jim, I think that, and this is just my personal opinion, this has nothing to do with swaying anybody. I think it's a deeper and longer conversation when it comes to a match to a grant that the voters in the town twice have voted down.
So,
You
just to be clear on that, right, the voters voted down
The funding.
borrowing for the project, which kind of indicates maybe they voted down against the project, but technically they voted against the funding of the project, so.
Well, that's true, and we can have an
Yeah.
offline conversation about it. I don't want to bog the meeting down, but it's, you know, it's what my father used to say, you don't let a camel get his nose in the tent, because the next thing, the whole camel's in the tent.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you got $1 million of a grant, and then the next thing you know, it's this, and then, you get my point, so,
Yep.
you know.
Nope, I get it. The water line is going in though right now, they're extending the water line.
Yep.
Under
Yes.
current grants. The pricing we got with that contract was extremely favorable.
Yeah.
The bid came in at like 3.2 million, the next highest was like 4.3. So, you know, they were just eager to do work over the winter, so, you know, if you don't piggyback on that contract and extend it, you're gonna lose those pricing. So what might cost us $1 million this year could very easily cost us $1.5 million next year. So just, not my call to make, I just pointed out.
It's not my call either, but I'm just bringing that up as a point.
No, it's a good point. And then the other point, and probably on the same lines, is on some of these, they could be considered for debt exclusion, some of these bigger projects, like the fire engine, the elementary school electrification. That could be a standalone debt exclusion project.
We
Well,
we did a capital debt exclusion one year, it was like
We did.
one.
I was just gonna say that. We
was it
did
like
they did
1.5 or
a,
something?
yeah,
Yeah.
in which they took, like, the lighting project, this project, you know, 2 or 3 projects that
Yep.
were $1 million, and, you know, and did a $3 million, I mean, that was.
Borrowing,
That
yeah.
was $1.5 million back then, but
Did it get
Do
approved?
we know what rolling, what's
Yeah.
rolling off, Susan?
Yes.
I've got that all down for FinCom.
Because it may be that we've got some debt that's rolling off that,
Not that quickly.
not that quickly, okay?
We're getting there on a couple of them.
Okay.
We're getting
stations is coming.
fire stations in another, yeah, I've got it all, like I
Okay,
say, a
good.
presentation for FinCom on the debt.
Regular debt, we had one, the campground's coming off this year, right?
Campground's coming off this year for the regular debt.
And then, what is it, the green, was it the green that came off?
That one came off last year, that was the last
Yeah.
payment, so that's gone.
So that's gone, so.
So
I
it's
don't know if
just
there's an
the-
appetite for that at this point, but
I don't,
Yeah, but we've got septic coming back on.
there you go.
Right,
Okay,
Septic will come back
Thank
on.
you.
thank you. I guess that concludes it. A good meeting. We've had some good discussion here, so just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next meeting is the 21st, Tuesday, 21st at 4 PM.
Yep,
That'll